Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903.
As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor, and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and today I have my good friend Brandon Straka, who's here with me, and he, of course, is the founder of Walkaway. You've probably seen him all over the news recently and historically for leaving the Democrat Party and coming over to the more conservative side, and he and I have collaborated on quite a few things, but he has now filed and is pending to file several lawsuits for defamation on various issues based on his personal experience with the lack of justice and also all of the fake news and genuinely defamation that surrounded the events on January 6th. So, Brandon, thanks so much for joining me today. And why are these lawsuits right now timely? Why did you choose to file them now? And what's the context around that?
So first of all, thank you for having me. Second of all, it was such a pleasure to hear that introduction because up until now, I've mostly been reported on by the left-wing media in conjunction with January 6th. So I've almost become conditioned to hear that they say, Brandon Straka arrested for his role in the deadly insurrection. That's usually how people set
Which
it up.
is itself fake news because you had nothing to do with it. You were a journalist there that was reporting. But of course, the fake news loves to spin this. And, what happened to you was injustice, was absolutely terrible. So I'm still proud to call you a friend. I stand and I've supported you throughout all of this. Everyone should know that. Of course, all of us went through a lot of various issues and injustices and subpoenas of various forms.
Strife.
And so forth.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad to see that you are taking advantage now of the court system to hopefully get justice and meaningful justice in some contexts in some areas.
Right. Yes. So thank you. Right. So what's happening is several weeks ago, I filed the first of what will be a string of lawsuits. And I've described it as sort of a strategic string of lawsuits. And the reason why I say it like that is because, the media and I think the Democrats and a number of other entities sort of banded together to create a story about January 6th. And so what I'm hoping to do with these lawsuits is begin the process of chipping away at and dismantling some of this narrative. And so the first people who got served were MSNBC. And the reason why I chose to serve MSNBC and chose to serve them first is because on two of their different primetime shows, one of them with Ari Melber, the other with Chris Hayes. We'll start with Chris Hayes. On Chris Hayes's primetime show, he was reporting on, again, my what's the word that I just used that they always use? My role on January 6th. See, they intentionally use words like this because they've already, January 6th has never been, the courts have never called it an insurrection. No person charged on January 6th, even in, I don't just mean not charged with insurrection, but I mean even the people who got charged with more violent crimes or trespassing crimes, things like that. In none of these charging documents is the word insurrection ever used. This is a word that was created by the media and created by Democrats in Congress, etc. But they love to say things like, a person was charged for their role in the insurrection. Well, my role was that I was standing in a restricted area outside of the Capitol. I never entered the Capitol on January 6th. I was about 35 feet away filming a video on my camera like this. And so when Chris Hayes was reporting about my charges, he made statements such as Brandon Straka broke into the Capitol on January 6th. He said that I committed the federal crime of storming the Capitol on January 6th. And then he also played a segment of my own video in which he attributed a voice, which is not mine, to me. And this voice in the video is giving directives to the audience about something that could be construed as an illegal act. Nonetheless, it's not my voice. So those are the reasons why we're going after Chris Hayes for defamation. Now, Ari Melber on his primetime show on MSNBC, he was talking to Matt Schlapp from CPAC, and he made comments to Matt Schlapp about how I confessed to helping to attack police officers on January 6th. I mean, that's a blatant fabrication. I confessed to no such thing. I wasn't accused. I was not even accused by the government of helping attack police officers on January 6th. And so this has gotten way out of hand. Way out of hand. They've become incredibly emboldened to just sort of make up anything that they want. And I think that's part of what bothers me and so many other people so much about January 6th is that it's just become this runaway train. And now people feel that they have no obligation anymore to behave ethically, to behave with any sort of, just stay within the parameters of what's considered ethical journalism or truthfulness. And we need to put the brakes on this, and that's kind of what I want to do. So that's the first lawsuit that I'll be putting up.
Let me jump in here real quick before we go to the second one, because I think it's very important to highlight something that you just mentioned. When the media uses these terms like, his role in the insurrection, and using these terms like role and insurrection that obviously have specific connotations that they're wanting the listeners to derive, it's not only misleading, but it's factually false. And the statements that you just made, I was reminded of Kyle Rittenhouse and the statements that were made by the media calling him a murderer, saying that he's now an unconvicted murderer. Well, a jury of his peers found, based on the evidence and the facts in a court of law, that he was acquitted for self-defense reasons. And so it's accurate to say that he shot and killed two people, but it's not accurate to say that he's a murderer. That has a legal connotation. It's also not accurate to say that he's quote unquote unconvicted. He was acquitted. So in a similar vein, I mean, this isn't just about January 6th. I think that this is, even broadly speaking, more about the intentional, misleading, factually false misrepresentations of media that are designed on purpose to hurt conservatives and to have real harm associated with their news reporting, like what has happened to you, because so many people have really stayed away from people like you, or who were at all had a quote unquote role in January 6th, or people like Kyle Rittenhouse. And it's incumbent upon the court system to put a stop to that and say that journalism can mean reporting the facts, and it can also mean having an opinion based on those facts, but you are not entitled to your own facts or to intentionally or even recklessly mislead or to misrepresent any facts or say something that is factually false. And the things that you are alleging that Ari Melber and MSNBC said, those would be factually false compared to what the data actually shows. So that's one defamation suit. So I applaud you for taking this to the court system, and I hope that you will get justice and the courts will restrict the fake news media into cabining their opinions into just that, into opinions. They can have any opinion they want about anything. That's fine, but they are not entitled to their own facts. So that's one lawsuit, and then you're about to get to the second and third and so on.
Correct. Yeah. So the second lawsuit, I'm obviously filing on my own behalf, but I'm also doing this on behalf of every person who was arrested in conjunction with January 6th, from, the lowest level misdemeanor charges for, like, in my case, standing in a restricted area. So they say, and to be clear for your audience who may not, know the details of my case, they might hear, oh, well, you were standing in a restricted area. Like, why did you do that? Why would you? That's, obviously that's against the law. I need people to understand. I arrived at the Capitol at 2:40 p.m. I was probably one of the last people out of hundreds of thousands. It's speculated maybe 1 million people who were there. When I arrived, the barricades on the east side of the Capitol were fully open. There were 0 police officers on the east side grounds. There are 0 signs, nothing telling people this area is restricted, you're not allowed to be here. And there were thousands of people, thousands standing around. So what I did was walked up a sidewalk and into a crowd of thousands of people, but the government decided that I needed to be charged with a felony of occupying restricted grounds, a felony, for where I was standing outside of the Capitol. Nonetheless,
that's incredible.
So
that is incredible. So what ultimately came, for those who aren't familiar with your story, what ultimately happened in terms of your court case and the lack of justice, in my opinion, system?
Well, I was initially threatened with 3 felony charges, including the one I just told you, and a misdemeanor charge. Now, so for these January 6th cases, nearly everything that's happening in these cases is unprecedented. I mean, the way that the courts are handling these cases, from the moment people are arrested, I mean, to literally having military grade vehicles driving into private neighborhoods, pulling people out of their houses in their underwear at 6 a.m. and abducting them and putting them in jail, again, on misdemeanor charges, through to dragging cases out for over a year. And they're even using a felony charge in these cases in a way that it's never been used in the history of American law. So they're charging a lot of people with a felony of obstruction of Congress, which had a very specific purpose up until now. But in these cases, it's basically being the definition of it is being changed to apply to people who went inside the Capitol and basically caused a congressional hearing to have to stop, which of course has happened numerous times throughout the years when left-wing protesters have gone into government buildings and shouted out and protested and brought government hearings.
We all remember the Kavanaugh hearings, and all of the leftists that went in were shouting at the doors of the Supreme Court. And, a few of those got arrested, but I didn't see any headlines about them being charged with obstruction of Congress or being charged with anything, frankly.
Right, exactly right. And so I was initially facing 3 felony charges because the one that I just told you about, and then they had mentioned that they had not yet charged me with obstruction of Congress, that they could and that they might, but they had chosen at that point not to yet. Now, in the meantime, they were charging numerous people with this charge, and that's a felony that carries 20 years in prison. So I ultimately made the decision to plead guilty to one single Class B misdemeanor charge. I took a plea deal, as the majority of January 6 defendants are doing. In my opinion, nearly everyone in these cases is being hideously overcharged and put into a position where the only logical step forward is to take a plea deal. A lot of these people have children, they have families. When they're facing potentially 20, 25 years in prison versus taking a misdemeanor conviction, I think it's pretty obvious what most people are going to do. So that's what I did. And that may seem like a happy ending, but it's been anything but, because although I now have a Class B misdemeanor on my record for disorderly conduct, it's treated like a felonious act of terrorism. I mean, truly, I've been placed on a terrorism watch list by the government. Another thing that a lot of people don't know is that the government has created essentially a registry for January 6 defendants, much like a sex offender registry. So if you Google my name or the name of any other January 6 defendant, the first search result that pops up is a dossier on each person that's been created by the government. And what I think is really, really sick about it is this file, this what I call a dossier, doesn't just contain what you pled guilty to and what you were convicted of. It contains all of the accusations against you. So when you open my dossier, it says Brandon Straka was charged with this felony and this felony and this felony and this misdemeanor, and they could make up anything. I mean, they could come and round you up, Jenna, and charge you with 10 felonies, and that's going to be in your dossier. So for the rest of your life, when people Google your name, they're going to say, oh, my God, on January 6th, she was accused of this and this and this and this and this. But it's not just what you were convicted of, which I think is just
it's
so disturbing.
mind-blowing, and that is such a miscarriage of justice. And unfortunately, in my experience on both the prosecution side and the defense side, when I was practicing criminal law full time in Colorado, was that you would see a lot of these district attorneys' offices or even the attorney general of the state that would upcharge as much as they possibly could to then have the plea bargain result in what the person genuinely, based on the facts, should have originally been charged with. And in my view, as a defense attorney, and even as a prosecutor, as a then prosecutor, I said, this doesn't make sense. Then what really is the benefit of a supposed plea bargain if all you're doing is basically making someone plead to what they were actually guilty of or what the facts show their original offense was? And it sounds like from your case, obviously it makes a lot of sense why most of these defendants, especially if they can't afford a lawyer or, there's so many lawyers that have been intimidated by the bar associations and others of filings to say, you can't represent these particular clients. There are a lot of us, myself included, that, I obviously was representing the Trump campaign at that time. So I'm conflicted off of, representing anyone else. And so there are a lot of lawyers that either can't ethically, professionally, or just won't touch some of these cases. And so when you don't have good representation, it makes sense why you would say, well, I don't want to go to trial and have potentially 20 years in prison on the line. I will take a lower offense, but that in and of itself is not necessarily justice. It gives really good optics to the government to say, look at all these convictions,
exactly.
And they can just list everything you were originally charged with, minimize what you actually pled guilty to, and then it creates this narrative like what MSNBC is saying that, oh, these are all quote unquote insurrectionists. And we know that the purpose of them using that word is ultimately so that President Trump and other Republicans are barred from office again. And in this case, barring anyone that's a journalist like you that was, going up just trying to see what was going on for the newsworthy content, or people to patriotically and also legally, lawfully, and constitutionally express their concern with election integrity. I mean, this is designed to quell and suppress anyone from speaking their opinion on election integrity issues. It's designed to have the harshest sentence that can possibly be imposed. It's designed on purpose to have, attorneys such as me and others who represented Trump at the time to not be so inclined to do that in the future, because then your professional license is on the line. I mean, all of this is designed to have a chilling effect, and it's had a very personal consequence for you and so many others that right. is genuinely unjust. And so what's your opinion of the new select committee on the weaponization of government that Jim Jordan is chairing? I mean, are you talking to members of Congress? Do you hope that they're going to look into some of these types of plea bargains and other things that the Department of Justice has done, or what's your view on maybe the effectiveness of that oversight?
Sure. And also you just said about a dozen very intriguing things. So there's a couple of things I have to just sort of respond to really quickly. The first was when you were making your point about people who can't afford lawyers. I would actually contend that even for people who can afford lawyers, it wouldn't do them very much good. Again, the way that these cases are being handled is unlike pretty much anything I think that's happened in the legal system of our country since its inception. And even seasoned professional lawyers like mine, who had over 40 years of federal trial experience, are kind of banging their heads against the wall going, I've never encountered something like this before. I mean, the very few people who are bravely making the decision to go to trial are finding out that the jury pools are completely tainted. This is in a district where about 92% of the people there are liberals, Democrats. And even as they're selecting juries, they're asking people questions. The government is asking people questions like, do you support the Black Lives Matter movement? And have you ever attended the Women's March? Questions like this that they're asking potential jurors, and they're stacking the jurors with the most liberal people in the world who believe that Trump supporters are all racists and bigots and Nazis and homophobes. And they believe it's incumbent upon them to punish these people for, what they've done to our country and done to America, because they have this false perception of who they are. Everything is, and the DC judges are not releasing jurisdiction of any of these cases. Every January 6th case has to take place in the District of Washington, D.C. It is my opinion that nobody will either get a fair trial or a fair outcome, even if they take a plea deal in that district. So I just wanted to kind of push back on that point that, like, if you had a good lawyer, you might have a shot. I don't think anybody has a shot on a January 6th
and
case.
even if, and you mentioned you had a private lawyer who had, decades of federal experience. And even that, those lawyers are costly. So people who can't afford a lawyer, maybe either, obviously our Constitution requires that one is appointed, but, whether or not that even does any good and that's helpful in the situation, you're exposing some of this. But also for the people who can afford lawyers, this is intentionally also designed to simply drain the funds of everyone involved and the fundraising mechanisms, because none of these people involved, I guarantee, who are regular, ordinary citizens like you, would have, just a couple $100,000 lying around to say, oh, just in case I need a lawyer because the government came after me for this frivolous sort of claim.
Right. Absolutely. To answer your question about the committees coming up, I'm extremely optimistic because I have to be, and I'm extremely hopeful. Certainly, I have concerns as well, as I think most people on the conservative side of the aisle do, because I think that we've spent, I've only been a conservative for about 5 years, but, for people who've been conservatives their entire lives or supporters of the Republican Party, there's been, I think, many, many years and maybe many decades of disappointment that a lot of people have felt that, like, finally, when we're in a position of power, there never seems to be justice. People never seem to be held accountable. Now, I will say I see a fire in this new Congress that I've never seen before, and I hope that that translates into actual action. I think very highly of Jim Jordan. He's extremely capable and competent. He's very smart, and I think he's very fiery and passionate and dedicated. My only concern at this point is, to answer your other question, have I been in contact with members of Congress? Yes, I have. And that is, I think, trending in a positive direction with some of these conversations that we're having. However, I know for a fact that I think no members of Congress at this time really understand the breadth of what most January 6th defendants have been through. Like I said, from the beginning of being raided by the FBI in such an aggressive and such a traumatic and terrifying manner, through to being put through, being put in a position of being charged, tormented with felony charges, and then asked, or we can make this all go away if you sign this statement that you did all these terrible things and agreed to a misdemeanor plea deal. Like, people need to know this. So what concerns me is that there's not enough inquisitiveness at this point from the members of Congress with people who have gone through this to try to understand what is actually happening. It bothers me when I hear members of Congress saying, like, we're going to take action, we're going to do this. And then I hear them basically just repeating talking points that exist in the media that are not really relevant to the heart and soul of what's actually going on. I don't want to spend 6 months probing, who is Ray Epps. I think it's interesting. I think we should look into who Ray Epps is, but there's a hell of a lot more going on in these January 6th cases than Ray Epps. And they need to know that and understand that so they can investigate it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so much of this is so highly politicized and is such a partisan theatrical measure that whatever plays better in the media, whether that's the conservative media or the leftist media that you're suing, that's what tends to get the headlines and tends to get more of the support of the people who just hear, the 3-minute hit on television instead of the truth and the underlying horror, as you describe it, and torment of what is actually going on. And so I hope that members of Congress who listen to this show faithfully and who I know personally will get to the bottom of some of these other very important questions, and also that they won't cast this aside and treat it with, well, we can't touch anything that happened in 2020, 2021. Let's just move forward, kind of clean slate sort of nonsense, because some of these things still deserve accountability. They deserve fact finding and the truth to come out. And so how can, in just the last 2 minutes I have with you, Brandon, and I really appreciate you being so forthcoming with your story and the truth about this. So many people aren't.
Right.
How can people support you, and what is the trajectory and timeline that you know of right now of these lawsuits? And really, genuinely, I think a lot of my listeners who are conservatives and Christians will pray for you. I certainly have been, and I want to just say publicly that I have been praying for you and support you, and will definitely continue to follow this case. And I hope that you will get justice in these cases.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I don't think I ever answered your question earlier when you asked me what's coming next. So I'll tie that into how people can support. So the next lawsuit that's going to be coming in the next few weeks, as I said, it pertains to my case, but I'm kind of doing it on behalf of all J6ers as well, is I'm suing a number of publications that have referred. Now, again, I pled guilty to a Class B misdemeanor of disorderly conduct. So I am technically convicted, but I'm convicted of misdemeanor disorderly conduct. Well, a lot of media organizations took their opportunity after my conviction to say that I am a convicted insurrectionist. So I have been reported numerous times as Brandon Straka, convicted insurrectionist. Well, insurrection is a real and very serious crime, which I did not commit and I did not plead guilty to. So I'm suing any publications that have referred to me as a convicted insurrectionist. If I have success in that, my hope is that we will establish precedent, and every January 6th defendant can at that point begin suing any publication that have referred to them as convicted insurrectionists. And then there's a number of lawsuits that will be coming after that as well, for false statements that people have made, referring to how the legal process has played out and what my role was in that. And we'll get to that, I think, in time. But for now, that's the most important thing that has happened and what's coming up right now. If people want to support my mission, fighting back against the media at this point, because it's impossible to fight back against the government. It's impossible to fight back against the DOJ, but we can fight back against the media, who's basically in bed with them and partnering with them in this pursuit to destroy conservative America. And so if people want to help support, they can go to my website, which is just my name, brandonstraka.com. There's a peculiar A at the end of my last name, so it's Brandon, Straka, like Straka.com. And right there on my homepage, there's a button if people want to support legal defense as I'm going after these various entities. And other than that, please continue to pray. Please continue to keep me and every other person going through this in your hearts and in your minds. And just stand with us. If that's all you can do, just stand with us, because it's like a David versus Goliath kind of situation, and we could really use support.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do stand with you. And for the people listening to this, just even share this podcast and share this story so that we can get the truth out there, and you aren't just going by the mainstream media's misinterpretations and outright misleading statements. These are things where the media does need to be held accountable. And, again, I mean, they are able to publish any fact that is public that they want to, and they can have any opinion on that fact. But what they can't do is mislead and have factually false statements, like say that you're a convicted insurrectionist, which is just patently false. So I hope that the media will be constrained to their proper role of freedom of the press, which is not the freedom to lie. Right. And I hope that you will get that justice. I know you've gotten a lot of support and a lot of prayer, but I know that will continue. But I hope that you feel that even to a greater measure as time goes on. But Brandon, thank you so much for joining me today. Continue to fight. Thank you for being bold in everything that you do and standing up for truth, justice, and genuinely the American way, because because this is not America. This is not how our justice system was designed and the purposes for which it should be used. I am disgusted by everything that I have seen. Your story among so many others, and not just in this context, but like I said, people like Kyle Rittenhouse, people like Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, just, people who have been maliciously maligned by the mainstream media. It's disgusting. And I hope that your lawsuit will, in fact, promote change and establish precedent. So good luck. Really appreciate it. And then where can people follow you on social media as well?
Sure. First of all, thank you for your friendship and your support and standing up. That means a lot to me. And if people would like to follow, I am on Twitter, Facebook, Getter, and Truth Social, and YouTube. And my handle is the same on all platforms, which is my name, at Brandon Straka, and it's spelled Straka. And it's even with Elon's takeover, it's very difficult to find me on Twitter because I still have a search ban on my account. So if you type it in, you might feel like you can't find me. Just please do the extra work of just keep going, keep trying, because I am on there. You will eventually find me, and then click follow once you do, please.
Okay. Well, and Elon, if you're listening to this, take away the shadow banning and the VF of everyone. So we hope that gets changed as well. All right,
Yeah.
Brandon, thanks so much, and we look forward to what's coming up as well from your Walkaway campaign. So thanks so much, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you, Jenna.
Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook. You need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903.
Have you ever picked up a towel set because it felt so soft in the store, but then when you leave and you go to use it, it's not really that absorbent? It's basically a towel that is leaving you out to dry. That's why MyPillow has developed the MyPillow towels that actually work. I know, it's totally mind-blowing. Towels that actually dry you. Their 6-piece towel set includes 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths. They come in a variety of colors. I have the sage green and the white. I love them. And right now you can receive a 6-piece set for only $39.98 with promo code Jenna. That's JENNA. So go to mypillow.com right now and click on the radio listeners special. MyPillow products come with a 10-year warranty and have a 60-day money-back guarantee. So to receive this amazing offer on the 6-piece towel set of MyPillow towels, just go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener special, and enter promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, or call 1-800-564-8475. That's mypillow.com, promo code Jenna.